How's it going? We're doing a bit of a different video today. So I recently have gone through a bit of a rough patch in my own personal life, as you've been able to tell from the past few videos that the background here has changed a good bit. And so I felt led to kind of share a little bit on a bit more in depth in regards with that, but also just as a bit of encouragement for those that may be going through a bit of a hard time. So sit back, relax, and let's rewind back to fall of 2023. Some of you may remember back in 2023, whenever I started this survival world, that I started attending a ministry school, which was an absolutely amazing experience to get to partake on and get to experience like something that was like a real college, which I hadn't quite experienced quite yet. And a lot in regards with the season there had to do with just having a lot of faith. Finances was going to happen and things were going to happen within certain time frames and everything was going to get worked out. And so a lot of it was like, oh, just give it time and, you'll get your answer and, you'll be able to have provision and whatnot. Well, towards the end of the summer in which I had served at a youth camp was whenever there was the question of whether or not I was going to be making it back that following semester or not, because I hadn't gotten any sense of provision. I'd barely just gotten enough for that summer. So I was just trying to figure out and understand why I wasn't getting an answer. And eventually I was left with the choice of staying out for 2 extra weeks and seeing if I was going to get any sense of provision or anything, and have something open where I was going to be able to go back, or to come home and start working. And so I opted out to make the decision to head back home, in which I was not okay with for many reasons, because I wanted to have more time with friends and I was really enjoying my experience and I didn't want it to just, end so abruptly. But I eventually left campus having faith that I was going to be back. And whenever I got back home, something shifted. That's the best way I can put it, is something shifted, and not in a good way, necessarily. I was getting a lot of pressure from family and friends about, what my next move was going to be, why exactly I was back home, and just if I was actually going to be going back. And I didn't know how to answer a whole lot, and I was just continuing to talk with the Lord, and well, Lord, you have told me that I'm meant to be here. I'm meant to go to ministry school, and I'm believing that you will continue to make a way, even though I'm not seeing anything change. But despite it all, I continue to have faith. I continued to believe in the word that I had from God to go to ministry school and to, just gain a bit more of a ministry type of education. And it was difficult because I just wasn't seeing any change or any differences or anything. It's like I kept checking my account and it still displayed $0, but I continued to hold on to hope and that, something was going to come. It had to. He spoke and he's never let me down before. So why not continue to believe? It's happened before. He'll do it again. I don't need to worry. Everything will turn out. Everything will be just fine. As registration came and went, almost in the blink of an eye, the window had closed. And I had never experienced anything like this in my life ever before. I had fallen back into old habits with depression and pornography, into even lesser and much worse degrees than ever before. I had never felt so alone and so isolated. And I had almost felt abandoned. I continued to try to connect with God, but I couldn't fathom the fact that nothing had changed. Nothing happened. I had faith. I thought, why? God, why would you do this? Why would this happen? I had faith. I believed. You spoke. You told me that this was going to happen, and yet nothing. I had nothing. No answer. No response. There was nothing. I tried my best to connect with God, but I just felt so distant. I didn't know what to do. So I just kept going. I continued to believe that somehow, some way, he would answer. 2 months had gone by, and eventually I had come to a sort of stressing point. And I was getting really frustrated by the fact that I wasn't able to really connect with God like I normally would be. There was a specific sort of like distance that I had never quite felt before. Sure, I felt distant from God having gone through pornography in the past, but this was different. This was not the average little, oh, I feel separated because I just sinned. There was something deeper, and I hadn't quite understood what it was yet. And eventually that day, God revealed unto me as to why I'd felt this way. And he said, deep down in your heart, you felt abandoned by me. And I'm like, Lord, you're right. I do. I had realized that my heart had given into despair without me even knowing it. I didn't know how to process this. But in the moment, I returned to a stance that I hadn't touched on in, well, a good while. But I basically just said, God, I don't know what happened. I don't know what you did. I don't know what's happening. But one thing I do know is I'm going to continue to trust you. And so that's what I continue to do. And not too long after is whenever he started giving me new directions. He eventually led me to a career to pursue and started to help me to get my life back in order. Come to find out, it would take a little bit longer, but he knew how to get me back. About another month or so had gone by, and I made very little effort in trying to reconquer pornography. And I started to question if I could be redeemed. If I could actually get out of this hole. Because it's like I was using the same tools and weapons that I had had previously. Nothing was working. I didn't understand. It didn't make sense. And I was just in this never-ending cycle. And at around Christmas was eventually whenever I was ready to throw in the towel. I have to be completely honest. Because I didn't know what to do. And I started to go to sleep that night, listening to a rather depressing song. Right as I'm about to fall asleep, I hear the voice of the Lord tell me to stop. And I'm like, oh. Okay. And then he leads me to listen to a different song. Now, the difference between these two songs is that the song I was first listening to was called Sick and Empty. And it was rather depressing. And even though it had a bit of a, somewhat of a hopeful message, it was overall depressing. The second song declared that joy was my portion, peace was my portion, hope was my portion, because Christ is my portion. So it was that song that then led me to write a piece. I'm now realizing what compromising for a smaller thing does. My safe spaces have turned into war zones filled with immorality and pain. The spots I once could easily relax on are now spots I have to fend off tormenting thoughts. And the places I used to call home now feel like my prison. I've taken God's peace and traded it for thoughts that keep me up at night. His love for short-term pleasure. His joy for an aching loneliness. His beauty for a fractured mindset. I traded my birthright for soup. Lingering on this guilt doesn't solve anything, yet despite the overwhelming thoughts that I don't deserve anything good, and that I should just give up, is one question that surpasses all the doubt and shame. Can I get it back? I don't think I'd be here if I didn't believe I couldn't. The temple of today may have been left in ruin, vines and cracks everywhere with promiscuous idols in high places all over. But if Josiah could redeem the temple in Jerusalem, left in a worse state for far longer, why can't we? It's going to take a lot of discipline, and it sounds impossible, but what about God was ever supposed to be easy and done on our own accord? I have to rely on him to help, but I have a part to play as well, standing in the storm, fixing my eyes on Jesus. Shortly close to the new year was whenever I actually started to experience a good bit of change. And even though in the new year I had declared that I was going to, be rid of pornography and never turn back into it, it was one night where, I had fallen back into it and I was at my wit's end and I didn't know if I would be able to break it off. That night, I had a strange feeling, and it was the sudden feeling to clean my room. And now keep in mind, it was already 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like, well, let's clean my room. And in the midst of cleaning my room, I had found one of my old phones. And so, for nostalgia's sake, I decided to look through the text messages. Those text messages eventually led me to realize that I might be going about trying to get rid of pornography all along. And that I need to go and break off stuff in order to be fully reconnected with Christ. So, the next day, I eventually had gone and broken off everything after talking with God and repenting for creating all of the ties that I had had with pornography. Repenting for every single image, every single piece, every single identity that was tied to it. I severed it all off. And he gave me a very specific strategy. I won't go into it. Let's just say I put something in a fire. So it was after I had broken off everything that God then finally told me, okay, now come to me. And I started to feel as if I was gaining my sense of self again. And over the next 2 weeks I had basically isolated myself from everything, from social media to even things like watching YouTube. And I actually bought DVDs. Like, no, seriously. I bought DVDs. And eventually, at the end of those 2 weeks, I had an encounter in which I felt whole again. And it was crazy because even leading up to that is like, I'd felt whole, but not like 100% whole. That day I reached it. And I'm like, wow. After everything. After having so many different doubts, so many different things, he brought me back. And better than ever, even. Not even a few days after that, I get a phone call. And through more of the Lord's leading, I am now in an extremely, amazingly happy relationship with a woman I love more than any other person that I know. Not more than Jesus. Trust me, not more than Jesus. But I couldn't have asked for a better partner. And it was only done through him. It was only done through him. I could not have done it on my own. None of this story could not have been without him. And so, I have to give him credit. So to close out today, don't give up. Doesn't matter what you're going through. If you don't have all the answers, what's going on, don't give up. Because there will be an answer that comes. Whether it's from God, or you just get some kind of other revelation about something that's going on. But anything that I want you to be able to take away from this, trust God. It's what I did. It's how it worked out for me. So, that's all I have. So, thank you for watching. If you want to see more things like this, or even just want to check out anything else that I have to post, just go down below, click the subscribe button, click the like button, share it with people that you know need to hear something like this. Or maybe just need to see other extra goofy bits that I will have. Because trust me, I have lots of them. I don't know why that seemed condescending. That was not supposed to be condescending. Anywho, check this out. Having said that, I bid you adieu. God bless you. Have a good night. So God, I set my gaze upon you. Take me where you want to take me. Do what you long to do. Help me to not look around at what surrounds me. Remind me of who is in this ark with me. Thanks for not giving up on me. It means a lot.